How about the snare?
Not I was, I am.
You are a drummer. Are you the little drummer boy?
No.
No. Big boy. He's a little big boy.
Yeah, the drumming old fart. Hey, there's a show going on here.
Is there?
Hey, everybody, how you doing today? How you doing? Welcome
Everybody
to our
happy
show.
because the S&P just broke down?
Christmas is coming.
Yeah.
S&P just broke down, rendering a superb buying opportunity for those who are foolish enough to rush in and catch the falling knife, as it were.
Russian.
Fools. I don't even see that song. I don't know. Is that an Elvis Presley song?
No, I don't think so. I think it's pre-Elvis Presley.
I know. Fools in love, they think they're heroes, 'cause they get to feel more pain. I say fools in love are zeros. I should know because this fool's in love
The venture
again.
keeps rolling over too. I hate to bring up the markets.
Yeah, it's depressing shit, Ed. Here I am talking about being in love, and you're, bringing up this pesky market bullshit.
Interesting.
Anyways,
Interesting.
Yeah. So what's causing the breakdown in the ever, bipolar S&P?
You know what? I've been reading a few of the pieces by, I don't know. Do you know Kevin Muir? He writes the Macro Tourist.
No.
His dad's James Muir.
James Muir, the famous naturalist, wrote was one of the founders of the Audubon Society.
Probably, maybe, I don't know. He's on Bay Street. He's been on Bay Street.
Bay Street? No, this guy's not on Bay Street.
So anyway,
this guy's dead.
In any event, you know what? And we'll talk to Alan later in the show, and Alan has a perspective about that. But I thought there was a candle there that looked like a bottom, and that low that happened in October has now been breached. So
yeah, well, just to put it into perspective, as soon as I pull up my pesky NDI monitor thing there we go. I am looking on my screen at the Midas Letter Canadian Cannabis Index intraday, and if you look at this,
what do you got?
Look,
what do you got? Okay, I see
there it is. There's the day right there.
Yeah.
We opened at 7,008. We managed to get our sorry asses up to 72.18.
Yeah.
And now we're way down here at 68.35 is as low as we've been today.
I think it needs to get pulled up by Wilbur.
Wilbur! Cutting for Wilbur! But anyways, yeah, that's looking like a right proper piece of...
natural gas a few weeks ago hit 490, which was the peak.
Natural gas,
and now it's like 350, 360. Like, these are monster swings. Oil can't catch a bid. There's Dr. Copper sitting there. Inventories are low.
Well, okay.
Had a great presentation last Friday with Steve Hughes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
From Crown Mining.
Well, Steve Dunn is Crown Mining, and Steve Hughes is sort of an independent guy. Anyway.
Okay. All right.
Lots of things to talk about.
Yeah.
What's coming up today?
Well, today's we got a really big show coming up here. Of course, at 3:05 in 1 minute hence, we're going to hear from Ricky Gerwitz with the news. Then I had a very enlightening conversation a mere hour ago with CEO CannTrust, Peter Aceto.
Is he the new guy?
He's the new guy. And then we're going to have Steve Gormley here from International Cannabrands, JUJU. Then we're going to talk about some people are being very negligent with their pot supply. Their animals are getting sick from fucking too much marijuana. Who's letting their dogs eat marijuana? So we're going to see some visual information as to why that's not a good idea. Then you and I are going to ping pong back and forth on the market close, try to come up with something sensible to say. Alan Brochstein is going to join us again from way down south there in Houston with some revealing insight on why the crappy performance of newcomers to the market in the last little while here. And then, of course, we're going to answer some questions from our live studio audience, this vast live studio audience. There's no studio audience.
You think it's just a matter of saturation? I mean, only so much money will come into an area.
Ooh, that sounds like something really intelligent to say. What do you mean by that?
Moving markets today. Tilray Inc. announced the terms of a binding letter of intent to purchase hemp-derived CBD isolate from LiveWell Canada Inc. The oil will be sourced from the United States and Canada for Tilray-owned wellness and medical products across North America. LiveWell will supply Tilray with CBD isolate made from hemp cultivated and processed in the US and Canada, with first supply commencing in February 2019. Canna Royalty Corp announced the results of the early exercise of its outstanding warrants and provided shareholders with an update on its investment in Alternative Medical Enterprises, LLC. The expiry date of the company's outstanding common share purchase warrants issued pursuant to a warrant indenture dated April 13th was accelerated to December 14th, 2018. As of the close of market on December 14th, 2018, approximately 99% of the warrants had been exercised. Subsequent to the exercise of the warrants, Origin House has approximately 61.2 million common shares outstanding. Namaste Technologies has entered into a share purchase agreement to acquire common shares in Pineapple Express Delivery Inc. The agreement also includes the purchase of an affiliated entity representing an additional 34% equity in exchange for such number of common shares of Namaste having an aggregate value of approximately $3.06 million. Upon completion of the transaction, Namaste will own 49% of the outstanding common shares of Pineapple Express. And that's your news for today.
Huh. Pineapple Express.
The Pineapple Express. That's something to do with Hawaii, isn't it?
Nah. Could be.
I could never understand if it was pineapple or pineapple.
Like as in an apple that fell off of a pine tree.
Yeah.
Bizarre. Modern fruit. Modern fruit is
Modern
automatic.
family, modern fruit.
Yeah, so, it's, I'm getting tired of these down day after down day after down day in the market. What about, when's it all going to turn around, Ed? Do you think that the fact that Malaysia has laid criminal charges against Goldman Sachs is a contributor to today's downturn?
What?
Yeah. Malaysia has filed criminal charges against Goldman Sachs for fraud for the $100 million they invested in Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs lost, get this, 95% of it. 95%. Before the Malaysian guys went, we don't think you're doing very well with our money. We're going to pull the last $5 million. Thank you anyways, assholes. But so today, this is we're talking 2 years after the fact. Now they've brought criminal charges against Goldman Sachs. And to which I say, couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people, really. Goldman Sachs, come on.
Jesus.
It's as big a parasite on the body politic as has ever existed. Let's see what else we got going on today, Ed. I was interested to hear that the States Act is now had a bill amended to it that is going to make it possible for the states where cannabis is legal to conduct banking by having it descheduled from Schedule 1 certification under the FDA the DEA in countries, or in states rather, brain fart, where it is legal. So, in other words, it will, if approved, it will remove the threat of the feds kicking in your door if you're in America in a state approved for legal cannabis sales, and you'll be able to take your money to the bank, which to us sounds like, why couldn't you take your money to the bank?
Yeah, the banks are saying, we want that business.
The banks are saying that.
Yeah. So let them have it.
Let them have it. Pow, right in the kisser.
Right in the kisser.
Yeah. So what'd you do this weekend, Ed?
Just chilled mainly.
Really?
Chilled, watched some football game.
Smoke any cannabis?
A little bit.
I received quite a delivery from Green Relief. 2 60 milliliter bottles of 44 milligrams per milliliter of broad spectrum CBD. Organic. from our fish friends. Our fish farming friends at Green Relief.
Green Relief.
Fish farming friends at Green Relief. Green Relief.
Did you try it?
I do it every day. I do a full dropper full every morning.
And do you feel any different? You look different.
Do I? I look better, don't I?
You look like you got some relief. Green
Well,
relief.
you know, it's funny. I would say that one of the effects of, obviously I've been doing this now for a couple of months, but one of the effects of ongoing CBD daily consumption is that your mood just mellows right out. It's kind of like an antidepressant.
Really?
But it's not, because it doesn't make your personality any different per se. It just really streamlines everything, and you feel like everything is IRA, man.
Hunky dory.
Hunky dory.
Yeah, look at this. Emerald Health going by at $2.66. It wasn't that long ago. It was up to $8.
Yeah. No, I know. It's a pretty ugly proposition out there in the marketplace. Why don't we go take a look at some of our constituents?
What about
here?
in the big index? Your big end. Oh, we did that already, didn't we?
We did.
Are they all down?
No.
No.
But okay, I'm going to start with the major Canadian indices where most of the Canadian cannabis stocks live, and we're looking at Aurora right now, which is at $7.49, down 35 cents, almost 4.5% on the day, on volume of over 11 million shares. That's the big trader on the TSX. The next 1, 2, 3 companies are not in the cannabis space. Bombardier, which is in the corporate welfare space. Baytex Energy, which is an oil and gas play. Manulife Financial, obviously in insurance and financial. And then Afria comes in at $7.28, down 19 cents, or 2.54% on the day. And now the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Basically, that's it for the cannabis performers on the TSX large board today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting, how Afria sort of cracked that level, and there was a gap there, and then all that that short report came out from Hindenburg.
Yeah.
Is it Hindenburg?
Hindenburg.
And you know what? There's been a lot of banter back and forth, but the stock seems to have gotten quiet.
Yeah.
Quite a bit lower.
Well, we're going into Christmas. Tax loss selling season.
And SPX, the Standard & Poor's, isn't helping us.
Goldman Sachs guys are all going to jail.
Yeah.
30,000 of them. Anyways, I just had this conversation with Peter Aceto a short while ago. He's the incoming CEO of CannTrust, and this is what we talked about. Peter, this is your first time as the new CEO of CannTrust, so I want to start with an overview of the company's financial performance in the last reported period, quarter ended September 30th, wherein it was revealed that CannTrust is actually a profitable company. Yeah. And so is that going to continue, or is that a one-time, just a blip on the radar, or is that going to keep going?
Yeah. It's a great question, and it's one I get asked a lot about because it does seem to be different than some of our competitors. So, yeah, I think we were really happy with our revenue number in Q3, and we had EBITDA to share, which is good. For us, it's very important for us as a company to be trusted with our shareholders, institutional investors, our patients, our customers, et cetera. So that financial rigor, financial discipline, smart capital allocation, and profitability and revenue increases is fundamentally part of our strategy. So that is something that shareholders should expect to see more of in the future.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that stands out to investors, and you see a lot of it in the social side, is people are talking about, well, where is CannTrust's Constellation Brands? And I like to point out to people, well, they've got a partnership with Apotex, which don't really know the details of, but I'm wondering, does that have a bearing on your ability to partner with large consumer brands?
So partnership is important. I think it's fundamentally part of our strategy going forward. I mean, we are really, really good at certain things, but in order to grow and expand globally and into different verticals, partnership is going to be important. So yes, we've got a partnership with Apotex, which we're thinking about as we think about cannabis from a pharmaceutical perspective, but also international expansion. But we're really, really proud of some of the other relationships we have. One is with Kindred, which is the Canadian cannabis subsidiary of Breakthrough Beverage, the number #1 alcohol distributor in Canada, and we've got an exclusive arrangement with them where they're representing our four cannabis brands for the recreational market from coast to coast. And I think their skills and their abilities in retail and understanding branding and educating the people who are selling coast to coast in retail distribution, that's a really, really important relationship for us that we're already seeing bear fruit. We've got a relationship with National Access Cannabis, which has the ambitions of opening 200 stores coast to coast, and so that's an important relationship for us as well. And of course, like others, we're talking to many other potential partners that give us a lot to be excited about in the future.
Was Altria was one of the companies that they mentioned that they were talking to CannTrust?
Well, we did speak to Altria along the way. I'm not sure if they shared that openly, but we do know that they spoke to many of us in the cannabis space. Yeah.
So I guess at this point, is there a sort of a business line that contemplates the production of cannabis as an ingredient in an extracted and concentrated form for like consumer beverages and food products?
Absolutely, and I would say that is fundamentally core to the CannTrust strategy. So yes, I mean, we've been very much a leader on the providing of medical cannabis, very much a leader in terms of educating physicians. We're seeing quite an acceleration on that as well. But another one of our competencies really is our extraction capabilities. We're the 70% of CannTrust sales are in oils and capsules, so we really think we're the leaders in Canada when it comes to extraction. And with new legislation expected not too far away, we're calling it edibles legislation, but I think it has a much broader impact than edibles. Right. That science, that innovation, the nanotechnology that will ultimately allow cannabinoids to be an ingredient in beverages, in topicals, in medicinal applications, we think is really, really important. And we see a significant increase in demand coming from those changes, and CannTrust is positioning itself to be a leader there.
Okay, great. In terms of the expansion of CannTrust's production footprint, there's been some discussion on Reddit where it's been suggested that CannTrust has not been forthcoming with some of the challenges that might be being faced in things like permitting and licensing for both phases 2 and 3, and especially in the context of the city of Pelham, who put a moratorium on cannabis licensing for a period of 1 year. So how would you sort of address that? What is the status of phase 2 and phase 3 in the context of the city's licensing?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you asked the question. We're very aware of these conversations that are going on in the marketplace, and just really much prefer to just talk about them openly. I will say before I answer the question, I will very directly, which is CannTrust really has been about trust. Also, one of my personal values in terms of my leadership throughout my career has been very much about transparency. So we certainly want to lead the way in terms of transparency and trust with all of our stakeholders. So here's the update in Pelham and our views going forward. So we had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Let me just talk briefly about phase 2. So phase 2 is expected to be completed in the month of January. I believe what we've communicated to the marketplace is that our hope was that was going to be done by the end of 2018. So we're actually pretty close, which should get us in a position where from an annualized production capacity, we're at about 50,000 kilograms annualized. So we're off maybe 30 to 40 days on that one, but I think we're really in the home stretch. We've got 3 rooms coming on board in the next 4 weeks, and that will be the end of phase 2. Phase 3, which I think is some of the discussion about. We have 10 permits with the town of Pelham. You're right. They have felt generally a little uncomfortable about the amount of cannabis players that are in their area, and they have put a temporary moratorium on some of the permit granting. Now, it was really interesting in our case, and we bought an additional 19 acres of land adjacent to our land. And actually, if those had been combined before we submitted the application, we would have had all of our permits approved beforehand. But here we are. So we're in regular conversation with the town of Pelham. So we still think that our phase 3 plans are very possible that can continue to go forward. That being said, we've got obligations to our shareholders and we need to drive our business forward. So we're looking at alternatives as well. For example, using our property for outdoor grow and accelerating that. That we don't need town permitting for. We do need Health Canada approvals for, and we are taking steps already to seek that. We're talking to other greenhouse providers in Ontario, but also all around the country. And I think in the future you're going to hear us talking a lot more about outdoor grow and ideal environments to grow outdoor, particularly for the extraction market. So I think what's really important from a shareholder perspective, or from any stakeholder perspective, is our hope was at the end of 2018 we would be at a 50,000 kilogram annualized production capacity. We're pretty close. Our plan with phase 3 was to be at 100,000 kilograms annualized by the end of 2019. So we're optimistic that we're going to be able to maintain that commitment. The other thing to share is we were able to repurpose something that we already have on that land. And so we're going to be bringing an additional 35,000 square feet on in the first quarter, over and above what we've already talked about. So I think so that's exactly where we stand. Things are a little bit different with the town of Pelham, but the conversations are still ongoing. They have not stopped them in any way. And we're actually optimistic that all of the commitments that we have made and our view about our plans in the next 18 months are all very, very much on plan.
So you say you have 10 permits associated with phase 3 in place, and it's only the town of Pelham that's holding up what has been permittable by these other 10 agencies?
No, my mistake there. So we have 10 permits that we've submitted that haven't yet been approved, and they were caught up in this temporary moratorium by the town of Pelham.
I see. And is there a definitive timeline on the moratorium, or is it just sort of like a subjective, whenever we feel we're comfortable again, we can reinitiate the licensing process?
So my understanding, it's the latter, that it isn't, they won't consider anything for 12 months. If that was their view, then we would definitely have, my answer would be different. We're continually in conversations with them, and we've certainly received no signs that we're not going to be able to proceed. But as I said, we have to pursue other options as well.
Has anybody pointed out to them the financial benefit of having this operation in their economic jurisdiction?
Yeah, I think as pointed out, I think it was in the Reddit, thread. I mean, we had people at the town hall meetings to make sure that we're a good. We employ a lot of people in that region. Very, very engaged employees. So I think you've got to be thoughtful and careful. There's two sides to this story, but certainly we're trying to show them that they need to. It's in everyone's best interest if people like CannTrust can make Pelham their home. But there's a lot of other options, and to be very honest with you, the inertia as this cannabis expands very, very rapidly. I understand why people, if they see things coming quickly, they want to slow things down and just be thoughtful about it. And I think the rational thinking will work in the end of the day, but we have a business, so we've got to make sure that we continue to drive forward and we have options.
Okay, and previously there was some discussion on CannTrust's part about an uplisting to a major U.S. exchange. Is that still in progress?
Absolutely. So we announced in our Q3 earnings call that we were going to be listing on the New York Stock Exchange. We have continued since then to take steps to do that, and it continues to be our plan to do that. We're working a little bit on the paperwork and those, but things are moving forward very, 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 very nicely.
Great. Okay, so then in 2019, what are the big milestones that your investors should be keeping their eye out for that will be representative of shareholder value?
Yeah, I think that's so. First things, what you pointed out in terms of what you might see from running a smart business with financial responsibility, smart capital allocation, revenue growth, engaged employees and happy customers. I mean, you should continue to see that from a quarter-to-quarter basis because we're very, very focused on those things as well. We want to continue to be a leader when it comes to growing high-quality cannabis at a very low cost. We think we're the best at doing that today. But as we see this market shifting from a supply and a demand perspective, as we see new legislation coming, we want to be a leader when it comes to innovation and product development. So we're really spending a lot of time and energy on the science and the product development side. From a health and wellness perspective, from a beauty perspective, from a recreational perspective, and of course from a medicinal cannabis perspective.
Well, that's great. All right, Peter, we'll leave it there. We'll come back to you soon. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be on. Thank you.
Well, CannTrust down 50 cents on the day.
Yeah, hitting very close to the lows here, and a profitable company. And they got some issues with the town of Pelham.
Yeah,
but I'm sure.
I think the town of Pelham's having issues.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. Multi-million-dollar cannabis production facility. Yeah, we are an independently affluent neighborhood, and therefore we don't need that kind of economic growth. Or, have you been to Pelham?
No.
Do you know where Pelham is?
No.
Do you know why you don't know where Pelham is? Because there's fuck all happening in Pelham.
But didn't they have a movie called Pelham 1, 2, 3 or something like that?
Yes, but that was not about Pelham, Ontario, I can assure you.
No, I can assure you.
Yeah, no, Pelham's, I actually grew up in Pelham.
If you had a pet shop there, you could call it Petum.
You could call it Petum. If you had politicians there, you could call it Shoot 'em. Actually, I don't think we're allowed to encourage homicidal violence.
No.
Although
things
do not shoot your politicians unless his initials are DJT.
You're obviously aware of civil unrest in France.
Civil unrest?
Yeah.
I guess that's the politically correct.
They're required to carry yellow vests in their cars.
Yeah, that's funny.
What's that? Why is that?
So if you have a breakdown on the highway, you're nice and bright and visible.
Okay.
That's it. But I think it's remarkable to me that we live in an era where the price of gasoline is an entitlement. And it's not like, oh, it's too expensive for me to drive. I'm going to move closer to town and I'm going to take transit. It's like, fuck that! Burn the place down! You guys suck!
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like crazy. I mean, if the price of gas goes up and you can't afford to drive, move.
Why wouldn't you have an electric car?
Why wouldn't you live within walking distance to work? Let me ask you that. I live within walking distance to work. And there's nobody's going to tell me that, oh, but it's too expensive. It's like there are so many $500 a month slums around me that there's no excuse for not living within a walk to work.
Really?
Lots of slumlords, yeah. We got the old TCHC flop houses still going strong.
TCHC?
Yeah.
TCHC?
Toronto Community Housing Corporation.
Oh.
Community.
Right.
Cooperative.
Right.
Cooperative. I think it's a cooperative. But anyways, Ed, I have a very hot little tidbit of news here for you.
Okay, is it political in nature?
Yes.
Is it to do with the United States?
Yes.
New York?
Yes.
Okay.
You're guessing. You're on fire.
I'll leave it there.
You're slamming it out of the park.
So what goes on?
Well, I'm going to tell you as soon as my computer stops trying to think that it's that much smarter than what I want to do. And hopefully that will start happening soon. No luck. It still thinks it knows better than I tell you.
Is this news that all the news across the nation?
Okay.
What's the news across the nation, James?
Across the nation, a dance to a different drum.
Okay.
And where the hell did it go? Of course, nothing's working when you want it to be there. Okay, let's just ignore the last 2 minutes of technical foo-for-ah. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo just made marijuana legalization a top priority. He says that within his first 100 days in office that he plans to make legalizing cannabis for recreational purposes his top priority.
Is he the governor?
He is.
And is he the new governor?
Or
is this a new term?
I don't know. Doesn't say. The article is not clear on that. One reason Cuomo may feel different, blah, 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 the Democrats will control the House. Anyways, regardless of that, he's having another term, man. we get from off Sotto Voce, they call it.
We got our
we have
resident,
our resident over there.
northeastern United States.
You know, I got a question for you. It's the trivia question of the day.
Okay.
Okay, folks, this is where we test your knowledge. Here's our question. When the TSX was created in Toronto in 1861, it was a small operation. Only 18 stocks were listed, but it was cheap to list. The banks and real estate companies who joined paid just $5 a day. So how much does it cost to list on the Toronto Stock Exchange today? That's including all fees. Is it A, $80,000 to $100,000, B, $500,000 to $1 million, or C, $2 million to $5 million? So what's the answer? Well, B. It costs between $500,000 and $1 million to list your company on the TSX. This includes listing fees of $10,000 to $200,000, auditing and accounting fees, legal fees, and an underwriter's commission of 4 to 6%. If you got this one right, give yourself 2 gold stars.
See.
Guess who just flew in? Steve Gormley, CEO of International Cannabis, is here in the house again. Steve, welcome back.
With my dear friend Ed and
of
James.
yes,
So happy to be up north again.
Are you?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit colder up here than it is down there.
Actually, not today.
Really?
It was pouring when I got in, but I was in Los Angeles last week. We had a major launch event for JUJU Royal, so I got a full week of sun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So it was sunny in California-esque. I was there the week before that, and it was anything but sunny in California.
Right. Well, it's a tough time out there with the fires.
Yes, it is. It is. So tell us about JUJU. I mean, there's so much going on, and like, what's happening? What's the story?
So we've spoken about this on and off the air. Prior to legalization here on October 17th, there was this insane artificial exuberance, right? And for the more sagacious minds, like my dear friends to my left, it was clear that there was going to be a contraction. I don't know that any of us knew that the downturn in the market, particularly the cannabis markets, would be as venomous as it's been. And I said to you then, and I'm here to reinforce now, what distinguishes International Cannabrands from the pack is that we actually bought real profitable businesses and are building and growing businesses. I've focused less on share price and I've focused more on performance. You might have seen our announcement last week. Our acquisition of La Vida Verde has exceeded expectations. It's 15% higher over the last quarter in terms of revenues produced. I actually went up from LA to Santa Cruz to see how they were deploying the capital that we gave them in the earlier part of the transaction, and I was elated to see an incredibly immaculate and well-run cultivation and manufacturing facility. I was able to see the equipment, the state-of-the-art equipment that was bought with the investment that International Cannabrands made, and the human capital, which was really exciting to see the tremendous talent under the leadership of Bryce Berryassa that's been brought on to really push that business above and beyond its goals.
So these are numbers that we're going to see in the next financials, I guess.
Well, yes, I'll come out and say that. But we're really excited about how it's going, and our acquisition of Riotous also turned out to be a really savvy choice. It's performing ahead of schedule. We expect to see strong revenues from that on a monthly basis come the middle of 2019, and we're hitting our marks. Our team is in order. Since my partner and I took the company over in July, we've made tremendous progress, as you know. Now, I don't think that that's reflected in our share price, And I think that we are at a point where we're so undervalued that people who don't invest will be kicking themselves. But I'm sticking to my knitting, James. I'm focused on fundamentals because, like I said to you, when the dust clears, and it will, there'll be a snapback, you know that. It'll be those companies that focused on earnings and EBITDA, revenues and performance that will really stand out and be pioneers, if you will, in the pack.
Okay.
We're not a single brand built around an RTO.
Right.
We're not a concept or a long play. We're a real business.
Okay, why don't we run through exactly what is the business of La Vida Verde and of Riotous, because I think a lot of viewers don't quite understand that these are running functioning businesses.
Fair enough, because I eat, sleep, and drink it every day. So Riotous was an acquisition. We acquired a more than 20% interest in a services business. So as you know, our overall strategy at International Cannabrands has been to focus on middle market, profitable brands. We're a brand play. We're an aggregator of moneymakers that have strong followings in the communities and markets that they serve. Like I've told you this before, but imagine rolling up regional beers. Right? These craft beers that have gotten really popular, and you've got people like Heineken and Corona looking at buying them because by word of mouth they've proliferated. We're doing the same thing but in cannabis. We're not going after the MedMen route. We're not bagging elephants, right? We're not buying assets at a premium that keep my bottom line in the red. We're buying businesses that are growing and expanding, emerging, that have in their DNA the ability to be franchisable, the ability to be national and international brands, but with a track record of performing in the markets they serve presently. That's the distinction. And we're also not hitting the startup space, right? I don't have interest in a brand that hasn't been proven. There's just too many of them out there. The market's overcrowded, and we've seen the results of RTOs that have wrapped themselves around single brands that have no market penetration. The results for shareholders are disastrous. And so what we offer the market is an alternative. We offer the market an opportunity to invest in real businesses, because when the rebound comes, and it ultimately always does, large companies will be looking to buy earnings. And they're not going to go after companies like MedMen that are operating in the red.
And have paid too much for it.
And have paid too much. And they're not going to put more good money after bad for single brands that are floundering with share prices that are being kicked all over the map. They're going to go for companies that have stable earnings. And that's International Cannabrands. And so that's the overarching strategy, but we are feathering into our business model the acquisition of businesses that support vertical integration, that are going to create better margins for the brands that we acquire. So businesses like cultivation, like manufacturing, that can not only white label products to other brands, but serve the brands at International Cannabrands by providing better pricing, by providing synergies, and we're also acquiring brands that are in those businesses as well, that have an understanding of distribution and cultivation and manufacturing, that get really solid genetics and the importance of providing the market with quality product. And so we acquired a company like Riotous, which is a service business. It provides financing for licensed manufacturers and cultivators. And the reason I went after that deal was it also came with an incredible distribution opportunity in the state of Washington. So now, as long as I can get my packaging across the border, which is completely legal, I can actually distribute JUJU Royal and La Vida Verde brands in the Washington market. So that's an extension of my reach, and that's sort of the first step toward legitimately and lawfully becoming a national brand in the US.
Okay, so then so you're distributing, Riotous does financing.
Yes.
And so you guys bought part of Riotous to help them capitalize their financing division?
What we were interested, no, Riotous comes with its own financing already. What we were interested in Riotous is the contracts that they have. So they're contracting with cultivators and manufacturers who have money but need additional funds to scale their business, to fund expansion, to, generally speaking, upgrade the quality of their production facilities, buy new equipment. And so those contracts are served by brands and by businesses that are in strategic geographies that International Cannabrands plans on exploiting.
Okay.
And so the view on that particular deal was to get into bed with brands and marijuana businesses in markets outside our core center of California.
Okay, so then what in 2019 will be the big milestones that the investors are going to look for to be indicative of this imminent balance sheet expansion?
Well, firstly, we're going to continue to focus on building the businesses we have, doubling and tripling revenues. We're going to be focused on earnings. But obviously, we're an aggregator of brands. We're a brand play. So we live in a universe where we have to be on top of the hottest trends in terms of brands that are coming to the market. And the reason we're focused on brands, and you and I have had this discussion, and Ed and I have had this discussion on and off the air, brands trade at incredible multiples, right? They trade higher than cultivation, they trade higher than technology. And so we're strategically looking at brands, not only in California, but in other strategic geographies that augment and support this middle market strategy we have, that are run and founded by younger entrepreneurs. I'm not looking for somebody who's in his mid-40s or 50s who's been working for 3 decades and wants to grab a pile of money off the table. I want a young, savvy, talented entrepreneur who gets that a publicly traded platform in Canada can provide them with the opportunity to expand their own portfolio in a way they would never dream to be able to do off their own money. So that's the profile we're looking to build. It's a family of formidable brands with management teams that are just as strong.
Interesting. All right, Steve. Well, that's a great update. I'm still excited. I'm still own the stock.
Great.
So we'll come back to you in due course, and we'll follow up the conversation. Right now, we've got a feature coming up that is very difficult to talk about because animals are getting high, and most of them are getting high because people are leaving their stashes where the animals can get them. And let Sean Cookson tell us about that.
With upcoming legalization of edibles in 2019, we not only have to think about our children's safety, we also have to think about our furry little friends.
When cannabis became legal in Colorado, veterinary hospitals found that marijuana toxicity cases quadrupled. So I went to my favorite dog park to see if dog owners were concerned about the accidental consumption of cannabis products, especially considering the legalization of edibles in 2019.
And as per usual with my luck, it was closed for construction.
So the next day, I went to what I thought would have been a very busy dog park in the middle of downtown. With my luck as it was, I decided to curl up in the hole of this tree until finally some people showed up.
In the park, I have to be pretty vigilant anyway because she's a puppy, so she picks up anything off the ground and eats it, so I'm constantly pulling stuff out of her mouth, whether it's that or some other crap that she shouldn't be eating. I'm not too concerned. I just hope that with any drug that adults use, they're responsible and they don't leave stuff on the ground or leave things for dogs to get.
And our own Ricky Gurowitz had a big scare when her dog ate an edible.
He started acting really strange. He was swaying back and forth. All his reactions were really slow. So we took him to the vet and she just checked his heartbeat and right away said, has he had any cannabis? At the park, he ran off and he could have eaten something. And she said, well, it's been happening a lot lately, dogs eating, edibles. And he was totally fine the next day. But we did get a very big vet bill in the mail.
It was time to go to a vet to get some information on the subject that I hopefully would not be charged for.
Since legalization, there has been a small rise that we've seen in pets that have consumed cannabis. It's hard to say whether this is due to an actual increase in consumption or whether owners are just more comfortable bringing their pets in. The classic textbook pet that had cannabis looks drowsy. They walk wobbly. Their eyes are usually dilated. And a pretty telltale sign is them dribbling urine. So they won't urinate in a normal stream, they'll dribble it in small drops. They don't have an increase in appetite like humans do. And in humans, cannabis has an antiemetic effect. It tends to decrease nausea, but in animals it actually can cause an increase in vomiting. And vomiting is one of the major things that we watch for because that can lead to serious complications. Oftentimes the most serious effects that we see are in patients that ate edibles that are concentrated. Oftentimes these edibles don't give a specific dosage in terms of what THC content was. Be aware of where it is at all times, keep track of it. The side effects can be pretty serious, and depending on what form they ate it in, the side effects can be even more serious. So if you're ever concerned that they might have eaten any, just bring them to a vet.
So that's what you need to know. And before it goes to the extent of taking your dog to the emergency, just be extra cautious and responsible. Just remember to stash your stash. For Midas Letter Live, I'm Sean Cookson.
Stash your stash.
Want to watch those animals, Ed?
Yeah, you know what?
Animals want to get high too. They don't realize that it might not be such a pleasant experience.
I think animals are high because they live in the moment. You know, they don't really think about the future and the past, right? They're just.
So do you think that the reason they get so bummed out when they get high is they suddenly see themselves as something? They're like, oh my God, I'm just a stupid animal.
Yeah, but you know what? Cats like catnip.
Yeah, but that makes them Looney Tunes. That doesn't make them depressed. You see cats on catnip?
I know, they're pretty funny.
Oh, now the fun thing to do is you smoke a joint and watch your cat do catnip. Now that's a good combination. That's like, I'll drink and you drive. No, wait, did I just say that out loud? Boy, I'm encouraging all kinds of untoward behavior today. Interesting. So, have you ever accidentally given a pet cannabis?
No, you know what? I wouldn't do that.
I remember when we were kids, and as kids we don't exactly think too much about what we do, but I remember it was for a while it was like you try to give your dog a beaker, a shotgun.
Yeah.
And of course the dogs didn't really appreciate it, and you had to use, you basically had to force the dog to do it, and the dog would just be like, like, what the fuck are you doing to me? Anyways, so but they never really enjoyed it. And,
they don't, eh?
Well, I don't think they do. Maybe dogs are like people though. Some dogs like to get high, most dogs don't.
Yeah, I was surprised. I don't know that much about dogs, but I guess dogs can only eat certain things, right? You can't feed dogs grapes, for instance.
Well, I have a blue heeler who she eats grapes. Yeah.
Come on.
She eats grapes. Anything you give this dog, she'll try it. And if you express pleasure in the fact that she's eating something, she'll eat it just to please you, even though she might not really care for it. I tried her actually because it was funny. On Saturday night, my partner and I, we got high, and we're like, well, let's see what Vera won't eat. And we gave her an almond. She ate that.
Yeah.
Chewed it up. Funny as hell watching her like just do this little stuff. We gave her a blueberry. We gave her a grape.
Yeah.
What else did we give her? We gave her a piece of broccoli. She ate that. It's like, okay, we better stop this because, this is daring ourselves to get more and more crazy with them.
Right.
So I can see where dogs are going to get, I don't know, a little bit...
little doggy?
A little wacky when they get high.
Do dogs get dog-eared, like paper? Dog-eared.
I have a dog with dog ears.
Yeah.
We haven't been paying close enough attention to our audience lately, Ed.
Well,
and I just want to acknowledge some of the people. Troy Smith, grapes are bad for dogs, he says.
Oh,
is that true, Troy? Why are they bad for dogs?
You know what? Probably so damn sweet.
What? And Nika Domi from Mind Your Wealth says, I know more dumb people than animals.
Yeah, animals are all basically the same. So you really can't say they're dumb or smart. They're just basically animals.
Yeah.
Humans.
The Velvet Voice podcast is asking me where we can get a Midas mug. The Midas mug is it's actually going to be on our store at store.midasletter.com probably mid-February.
We're going to start selling a few.
We're going to start cranking out the merch.
Like
people want the merch.
Products.
Give the people what they want.
Much like you go to a basketball game and you buy a basketball.
You go to a concert, you buy the CD, the T-shirt. Yeah, we got it all. We got our grinders being developed in China, where the best grinders in the world come from. These are the best grinders in the world.
Really? China.
China. Well, we're actually going to go and find the best grinder in the world, and then we're going to go find the manufacturer of the best grinder in the world. We're going to say, we want you to put Midas Letter RAW on that sucker, and we'll sell it for you. How do you think that's going to go over? What do you mean,
Yeah, I think a Midas Letter grinder. Every household should have one, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you like to grind your marijuana. We had a question for Steve Gormley, but now he's gone. He mentioned on the last Midas Letter interview that he'd like to bring the stock price to $10. That's 100x from where we are here.
100 times.
Isn't that 1,000 times?
Well, 10 times 10 is $1.
Yeah, 10 times 0.1. 100 times 0.1
is $10.
Okay, right. How realistic is this goal? Scott Teal says, just look at his eyes. So, yeah, we didn't really give Steve too much of a hard time here.
No. In fact, I was going to, ask some questions, but like for instance, I was going to ask him about, if you're going to do acquisitions, you need a bit of cash. I mean, what's their cash situation like? We should have asked him.
Well, I didn't ask because I know, and
you know.
Yeah, so that financing, and so they set out to raise. They were going to do a raise. They just signed a deal with Gravitas in November to do 25 million units at 20 cents per unit.
That's $5 million.
Yeah, they ended up closing on 7.5 million units at 10 cents per unit.
3/4 of a big one.
750,000, but with a full warrant.
At?
Probably 15.
Right.
So let's just say there's going to need a lot of uphill pushing to get through that number. I keep waiting for something big to come out that nobody told me about, nothing, and that's why everybody told me to buy this thing in the first place, and it's like, so far, what can I say? I'm long the
You're
stock. I'm long the stock.
Long and right. Long and
skeptical.
Dubious.
Yeah. Well,
you know what? I got to be honest with you. It's difficult for me to get excited about this market because when I look at the S&P down at one point earlier, it was down 63 points. In the new territory, there was a reaction low back in February that we just we got to within 3 S&P points of that number. Stay tuned, folks, but looks. We've had 10 good years of markets basically.
What?
Since 2008, yeah.
Geez, it's been 10 years since the financial crisis? That's right. Yeah. And
yeah. And we're going to be 2019.
See, I don't see it that way as 10 years of good markets. I see it as 10 years of more. Actually, the 10 years of the great market was from it wasn't 10 years. It was like from 2002 to 2008, because that's when gold basically tripled. Well, it went 5x value before it backed off to 3x in value, where it sits more or less today. So that was a great run.
Yeah.
And then the financial crisis was false start after false start coming out of that, at least in the resources sector, which is what Canada's been focused on, and energy. And, I didn't make a lot of money in the energy or resources sector since then. So when the cannabis thing came along, I was really quite pleased.
Yeah.
And, but, and this is, I think that.
And you know a lot about that sector from personal experience.
Well, I know a lot about the retail side of the sector. However, it's changed quite dramatically.
Earlier today, gold was up about 10 $11 that I noticed, and I'm looking at a chart of gold. In fact, why don't we look at a chart of gold?
Well, okay, but before we go away from the cannabis space, the Velvet Voice podcast says, James, if the cannabis sector is so obviously new, why would you be scared of the current market? Would you not see it as a shopping opportunity? I do see it as a shopping opportunity, and I'm not scared of it, as evidenced by the fact that I'm holding all these positions that are, shedding value faster than you can say Jack the Bear, and I'm fine holding them because I know the rebound will come in, and I know that exactly this is the long game, and it's going to be a long one.
The one, cautionary note that I would make is that whenever I see a chart that's retreated dramatically from its, I don't mean halfway even. I mean, like when you look at like EMH, for instance, which just went by
Emerald Health.
Yeah, it went by at 250. It was as high as 9. I keep, and again, this is just technical
mumbo jumbo.
but it's a bust when a stock gets busted, like Tilray. Look, Tilray, like no problem shedding another $10 today. No problem.
Yeah. Well, you know why it's dropping
a
like
lot more papers out.
That's right. Because all the restricted paper is now coming into the market. Anybody holding that paper is not in a position to say, wait a second, I'm going to wait for it to go back to $300 before I start selling.
And what is the price of that paper?
What is the cost basis?
Yeah, lower.
Lower. Yeah, there was nobody paid $300 a share on the inside.
On the inside.
Exactly.
That's just for the outside.
Exactly. That's for the retail guys. That's for the machines. That's for the la machinas.
All right.
Now, I hate to break it to you, Ed, but the market is going to close here any second now.
Well, I don't think it's going to be any second. It's going to be about 45 seconds.
Why 45 seconds?
40.
40?
39.
39. Really? You don't say. I had a great conversation with Alan Brochstein about why these early issuers are performing so well, and this is the essence of our conversation right here. Hey, Alan, how are you doing?
Hey, great, James. Good to see you again.
You as well. So, Alan, the market's been kind of in a tough spot lately, and I guess the best way to describe it is all of the new issuers that have been coming to market have been absolutely dismal performers. And I'm curious as to your perspective on why that is.
Yeah, so, I'm not able to confirm this precisely, but I've heard from enough people, kind of started with the Curaleaf deal, and apparently they had a big, they were out there representing that the book was even bigger than it was, and people upped their orders, and then they ended up getting full allocations on the upsized orders. And so it left a bad taste in people's mouth, apparently. I've heard that from a number of sources. And so the reality is we've seen in very weak overall market conditions a lot of supply raised. And I've been watching the capital raising in the cannabis sector for the last several years. And we go through these cycles. And at the beginning of 2016, the beginning of 2017, we saw a lot of capital raised in Canada, and it pressured the stocks ultimately. And I think, we're seeing that. We're seeing, a little bit of a jam job from some of these issuers, perhaps. And I blame that likely on Canaccord, the underwriter. But I think that's part of it. And I think we were talking about this last week with all the losses across the sector this year and some early in the year gains and maybe late in the year gains for certain names. It's just really easy for people to throw in the towel, take their tax write-off, clean up their books, and come back and play again next year. So I think we're kind of in that mode. I would point to the immense revenues that are being generated by a lot of these new issuers. Specifically, Trulieve isn't a real new issuer. They came public, I believe, in September, but they kind of lead the list among the MSOs or multi-state operators in the United States. But some of these other guys like Curaleaf and Harvest and Cresco and Imhardine, they all have very substantial revenues relative to their Canadian counterparts. So in 2016, when people were piling into the Canadian LPs, these businesses were not that advanced. They were very speculative at the time. Hard to tell who was going to be the leaders. And ultimately, those that raised the capital have become the leaders. Aurora, Canopy, Afria come to mind as really good capital raisers. And here in the United States, a couple years later, maybe almost 3 years later, it looks different. And investors are able to judge companies that actually have very substantial operations already, generating revenue with a pipeline. And something your readers may not, and listeners may not appreciate, I've been following the Canadian LPs for more than 5 years, roughly 5 years, and they never have given guidance. Organigram just gave guidance. This is the first time I recall ever seeing guidance out of Canada. And they guided for Q1 revenues, that's the quarter that just ended November 30th, that would exceed the whole year last year, 12.6 million Canadian. In the United States, we're seeing these new companies give guidance. And I want to call out one in particular, and that's Harvest. Harvest is based in Arizona, and that's really where all the revenue comes from right now. And I think it was page 27, if I'm not mistaken, of a 46-page deck, 13 pages of which were risk factors and 3 pages of which were disclosures. But if you look at that slide, they laid out in detail how they're going to get to, I think it was 566 million revenue in 2020. So I don't know if these companies are all going to achieve their goals. I love that they're sharing them, and I love that some of them are actually giving substantial detail. And I just published an article for 420 Investor subscribers detailing, I think, 9 companies, including Organigram and Harvest that I just mentioned, but 7 others that have provided guidance. So that was a long answer, James, but I think that's what's going on with MSOs.
No, I like a long answer. What's the symbol on Harvest?
So in Canada, it's HARV, HARV, not to be confused with Harvest One, but HARV, HARV. And in the United States, it's not a real listing yet, but HTHHF.
Okay, so do you think that that the era of the massive private placement at an egregious valuation relative to what the balance sheet expresses is now becoming a thing of the past because there's a more cynical, sort of jaded American appetite coming to bear on this, where, sure, you'll get speculative value built into a share price in the form of a premium, but not at those crazy multiples where it's just like, oh my gosh, things valued on a speculative basis at 10x go forward revenue. It's like, it still makes no sense. So do you think that's kind of like those days are gone?
I'm not sure. I have to be quite honest. So I don't always see these things early. I mean, it's the private placement investors that see them, and I'm not privy to that necessarily. And so on Curaleaf, for instance, they trying to remember what the point I wanted to make on the deal. So I looked at the deal after it was priced. I was like, wow, this just seems like in the wrong ballpark. So for whatever reason, people were scrambling to get into Curaleaf and some of these other names in advance. To be fair, a lot of the weakness came with weakness in the overall market and specifically in the cannabis sector. So it's not like these deal prices were necessarily egregious. They ended up looking more egregious than they might have been, just because by the time the deal's priced and announced, there's been 2 weeks to 4 weeks perhaps. So, you're looking at it today when everything's already declined. So, but to your question about what's it mean for the future, I think we're just getting started. And it's unfortunate that some of these investors have taken some lumps. We saw Medman do something kind of odd in a bought deal, and they talked about courting new investors, that they wanted to make sure that these investors weren't hammered, and basically, so they let everybody get hammered, and you saw the repricing of their bought deal, and that was their rationale. I didn't agree with it, but I at the same time, I respect where they're coming from. They put a lot of time apparently into developing these new investor relationships, just as many of these MSOs have done. And it's unfortunate. We can all point our fingers at Canaccord maybe. I don't know the cause, but I do know this. You could have given up on, to bring back Organigram again, you could have given up on Organigram after they went public. They opened up at $2.40, and the next thing you knew, a year and 3 months later, they were trading at 20 cents, and it was a total storm of some sort. And you know, and I don't even remember now if they were able to raise more capital on the way down. But I would just remind everybody that, let me give a more recent example. At the end of 2016, at just a terrible time, in my opinion, to go public, Innovative Industrial Properties, that's IIPR, did something spectacular. This is a 100% cannabis-focused REIT, and they listed on the New York Stock Exchange at a bad time of the year in it wasn't the worst market, but it was like after a little bit of a bull market run in the cannabis space related to the elections. And, you know, nobody does these IPOs on Thanksgiving Day or whatever they did. And the stock came out at 20. Next thing you know, it's trading at below 15 briefly. Spent all of 2017, or most of it, below $20. And it's above 50 now. So to all you who got slammed with MSO stocks at high prices, here's the good news. These companies are performing fundamentally, and they have a great chance of recovering. I'm spending a lot of my time trying to differentiate between these different companies. There's not really an effective way to buy them all at one time. I've talked about, in full disclosure, a client of mine, CNTTF Holdings, and I've mentioned this one to you before. They may be an interesting way to play that whole theme of these large cannabis companies forming or extending in the United States, you know, swallowing up licenses left and right, because they work with all these companies, so they'll be able to ride that wave. And there may be some other companies like that too, but for now, investors are kind of stuck. And there will be some new issues, James. Maybe they're going to get hurt on their pricing because of the bad experience, but I don't see this as a serious setback for the industry.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I wonder to what extent, though, you know, I've noticed, as you have, that this cycle of raising big chunks of capital, like, so when the markets are hot, everybody tends to rush in and announce a big wave, and that puts an immediate overhang on the market 4 months down the road. So I've seen, as I'm sure you have, that these cycles emerge. And it's, as you said, in the last couple of years, the year starts off strong. Everybody rushes out and raises money. Well, by the end of spring, all that paper is free trading. And so the market drifts into a discounted condition throughout the summer until, you know, everybody's gotten off the majority of their paper and everybody comes back from summer and the markets are sort of frothy again and the prices go higher and everybody piles in. Yeah. And then, you know, the influences of tax loss selling happen. And this year, you know, tax loss selling combined with, you know, the fact that there's a lot of geopolitical and macroeconomic sort of fragility out there. So, I mean, I look at this market and I agree with you. I think it's early days and that these long waves are actually ultimately just part of an ongoing cycle of, you know, market capitalization on premium as new interest comes in, followed by market discounting mechanism on, you know, liquidation of those financings, and rinse and repeat. And it's like you could almost set a clock according to this stuff. Like, I mean, investment season starts in January, and then it's over by the end of May, and then it starts up again in September, October, and it's over by December to start again in January. And if you can actually, you know, align yourself with that sort of macro level thinking, then you're going to do a lot better than guys who are chasing those waves.
Yeah, I always say don't chase the waves, but you know, it's been interesting because we started this year, and I shared an observation with my members at 420 Investor that in each of the past 2 years, you could set a clock to it. You sell the LPs early in the year, and you buy them back in the summer, and it's worked out really well. But I warned that this year might be different because it was based on only 2 years, and there wasn't necessarily a calendar reason. I thought it was more of a coincidence. And so this year we started off very strong in January, and the prices just kept, you know, shot up. And I think that was because of California and all the two ETFs in the United States that a lot of Americans were buying, and they didn't realize they were buying Canadian LPs, silly as that sounds, but that's what happened. And so in any event, we got a little bit of a summer rally this year, but I think, you know, the idea of setting your clock to that calendar did not work this year at all. And we're seeing, a lot of the LPs are down 50, 60, 70% this year. Many people focus on only the largest ones. If you take the 4 largest Canadian LPs that are listed in Canada, which would include Canopy Growth, Aurora, Aphria, and CannTrust, only one of those is up. Only one, and that's Canopy Growth. So it has not been a good year. So I'd be careful about extrapolating exact months and timeframes. And I think, this year is rather interesting. There was a big rush, as you pointed, to go public. So we saw a lot of these companies go public, and sure enough, it weighed on the market. And for those that don't understand what happens, it's pretty broad. People sell maybe Canadian LPs to buy into Harvest or into Cresco or something like that. And I think there's just a lot of factors. So when I look into next year, I'm not that concerned about the supply dynamic. These deals don't have lockups for the most part. These newer deals did not have lockups on the new issue. So they're free to sell from day one. So we don't have that overhang. And I would say, unlike Canada, which has under 40 million residents, the United States is a much bigger market. And, I would just point to, while, we always talk about the risks being greater in the United States because of federal illegality, at the margin, there's the opportunity to swing that federal illegality towards legality, which is really well received. So there's some upside potential from that. And then the valuations, as we often talk about, are so low, yet the revenues are so high relative to the Canadian LPs. So it's not so much that this is bad for the Canadian LPs, it's just that a lot of US citizens that are interested in cannabis, I think, are going to roll not necessarily into Canadian LPs, which is really their only choice in the past if they wanted to be in legitimate companies. Now they have a lot of options in the United States.
You bet. And I guess we're going to see more of that evolve and unfold as we go along. Alan, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for joining me today.
This is great, James. Thanks.
Yeah. Knowledgeable guy.
Yeah. Always astute and relevant. Yeah. Most importantly, relevant.
And is he specialized in this space, or is it?
He is the first certified financial analyst, chartered financial analyst in the cannabis space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That'll be etched on Alan's tombstone. The first CFA in the United States to cover the cannabis space. Yeah. At least as far as I know. Nobody else has tried to correct me on that, so I'm assuming that's right.
Well, I'm going to put up the SPX here. I want to see what that.
See what the aftermath looks like.
The big. Let's see here. Down 54. Little bounce off the bottom, but nothing that I'm going to get excited about. So. Right now, the trend is entrenched to the downside, down 2% on the S&P. We've broken through. Chart now,
So is there any reason to be just remotely positive or optimistic for the rest of the week, or is it just going to keep going like this?
I'm pretty sure now, like the Dow down another 500 points. There's only so many down 500 points in an index that's 23.5, like basically 47. Okay. So 47 days from now, the Dow would be 0. And I'll tell you, if that were to happen,
it'd be a different world, wouldn't it?
We'd see a little anarchy, I think. Yeah. But anyway.
I don't know. Do you think if this stock market was obliterated, I mean, the people on the street who don't have any money on the stock market would they even notice? They'd be like, ha,
well,
suckers.
They say the rich are always rich, the poor are always poor, and the middle class gets jerked around. That's sort of how I look at it. It's always about, everybody's trying to figure out how. The rich have figured out how to stay rich, and so they don't give a shit. The poor really don't. I mean, the middle class, you keep getting jerked around. It's like what happened in France. They raised taxes on gasoline. And the French finally said, hey, enough's enough. Let them eat cake. Whatever. Gâteau.
Yeah.
Chocolate gâteau.
Gâteau.
I've been through enough of these things. I saw the NASDAQ drop in the year 2000 for the next 3 years. That was pretty serious. And yet, here we are later, and that gave rise to one of the greatest opportunities, Amazon. So, it's just about staying in the game, I think if you can stay in the game.
Well, that's just it. When asset prices collapse, the key is not trying to get out in time. It's having the staying power to let the prices collapse, leave your money where it is, and wait till they recover.
You know, this may sound a bit almost financially perverted, but like I get
just
to,
financially
I almost
perverted.
think the rich can manipulate this so that they can knock shit down to the point where the average guy can't stay in, and they buy it all up, and then they promote it up and sell it to us again. Like, I think it's a big, I hate to say it, but I think it's a big con game. I really do.
The stock market.
Well, not just the stock market, like real estate, for instance. If you hey, you say, well, let's raise rates, real estate comes down. If you're smart enough to get out, you're down at the bottom, you got cash, you buy it all up. And it started all over again. It just goes back and forth,
Look at Canopy growth below $40.
Yeah.
$39.29.
Yeah, there you go. It was, what was it? $32 when they? It was $32, I think, when the big deal in the States
with Constellation was announced.
Yeah.
Do you mean the original announcement?
No, the second one.
The second one.
Well, let's put it up.
Yeah, check that out on a chart there, right?
There, let's take a look. I'm going to put up weed. That's we and Ed gets weed. We and Ed. Yeah. Tell ya.
Acreage making new lows today too.
Yeah. I wonder how the new issue calendar is looking over at our some of our illustrious bankers on Bay Street. Are they?
Well, let's just say I don't know if they're going to be deploying much capital in Q1 2019.
Okay, so let's take a look here. So we went from, let's do a 6 month. There we go. That's a 6 month chart there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, here's the day the market looked like. Then we got the reprieve with the Constellation deal. Gonna put up some.
Wow.
Can you say round turn?
Boy, acreage down to $15.29.
Yeah.
Basically having lost 60% of its value.
That was.
Oh no, sorry, that's not 60%. Boy, good math, James. Duh. Having lost.
Yeah, there was the bottom
40% of its value.
And then we had a nice run. Toppy. We got a trend here. Yeah, I mean, look, are we going to go back and test 32? It just looks sloppy. And it feels like I can't help but feel, it's hard to get excited. I wish I could bullshit you, but.
Yeah. So, I mean, it looks like all the bad news that we've had, or all the bad news that there is that could be had, has now been had. Like 2-year yields are down.
I'm gonna well, but rates are starting to go back down, right? Like rates now, people are getting like.
Well, that's because the Jerome there has backed off on his representation that we're going to normalize rates through successive raises 3 times next year. I don't think you are, especially when you've got wingnut president there, criticizing his own Fed chairman publicly, which essentially undermines the whole value proposition that the Fed is a independent entity. Obviously not the case.
It's a private organization controlled by big money.
Well, it's an extension of the Treasury.
Hence my cynical approach.
Yeah, no, it's a corrupt organization, an extension of the Treasury. Have you read the book,
if they would have never taken
Island?
gold off, about gold, right? If there's no inflation, a lot of these problems, but the bankers are just so effing greedy. Yeah. Is that, anyway, look, at the end of the day, we've had bubbles. We've had the South Sea bubble. Interestingly enough, I think it was Isaac Newton lost a fortune in the South Sea bubble.
Really?
Yeah, he got caught up in the mania.
And what was the South Sea bubble?
I don't know if it was tea or it was, I don't know. There's the tulip mania, that was one. But the South Sea bubble, I think it was just, they're expanding, indiscriminately into a new part of the world.
Right. Okay. So that was a bubble. Too much money flew in, chased too small a pool of quality assets. The assets they kept chasing got of worse and worse quality, bringing the value of the whole basket down.
Yeah.
And that is the essence of a bubble right there.
Exponential moves end badly. We saw it with, well, it does, look, I want to see something that tells me that this trend we're on now, and these moving averages are now starting to, like, they're pointing south now. They're not pointing sideways, which gave me hope for a bottom here. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're going to be here every day this week, and we're going to talk to this, and then we're going to sign off for.
Well, you're going to be here every day this week. I won't be.
Yeah. What was that?
That was us. That was us talking. I'm back here visiting the
past.
I'm visiting the users on Midas Letter's YouTube page. Jordan Botha says the mandatory buyback of gold in the earlier USA days, that was BS by the Fed. That's where you had to turn in your gold for $35 an ounce. Was it $35 an ounce?
Yeah, that's so they could steal your gold from you at a good price.
That's right. So they could outlaw private ownership of gold, which they did until, what year was that tomfoolery ended?
It was, I think, early 70s with Nixon, wasn't it? Isn't that when it happened?
No, by the 70s, Nixon took the United States off the gold standard in 1972 through the Bretton Woods.
But isn't that when I think gold was $70 back then, in 1970?
It was 35.
Or $35. Yeah, it was pegged at 35.
Yeah.
And then it started to move. And if you were astute and bought gold in the mid 70s, by the end of the 70s, it got to $990, and I believe December of 79.
Right.
Anyway, look, then gold got shitty up until the end of the 90s, down to 220, 230, 240, whatever, and then it moved to 1800.
Mm-hmm.
I got to believe that we're going to see a market in gold again, because I think the
market for everything else is gone.
Well, paper assets, right?
Yeah,
paper tiger.
Yeah, no, it's ugly out there.
There's a book. I can't remember the name of it, so that I guess that's makes it difficult to talk about. But it says basically, if you want a recipe for financial freedom, owe no money, have a job, right? And spend less than what you make.
Yeah.
Owe no money and watch the insanity from the sidelines. Don't be in the Coliseum with the lions. Be in the stands,
Philip Chang says, James, bam, body and mind is up 7% today in a sea of red.
Wow.
Pull up that chart, Ed.
Okay, what's the ticker? Just remind me.
BAM. BAMM.
Okay, oh yeah.
CSE.
Is that the CNX or the...
Yep.
$0.60, up 4 cents on up 7%. Dropped from $1 and something 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, these things they dropped dramatically, and now they're going sideways a bit.
Yeah, this is starting to look like the nuclear winter of mining market, where it's like, okay, you think that, okay, it can't go any lower, it goes lower, you go away for a couple of days, you come back, it's lower still, and you're thinking, geez, what's going on?
Well, in this particular deal, I don't know much about, again, fundamentals are not my bag, but I see this crazy action here with this is a major, through the Bollinger Bands, big wick, and then we get the test here, and another test. And then, here we are down here, and we just had a big drop, but it's not rallying, it's just trading. It's like it's getting comfortable in a price range.
And the volumes are sort of declining.
Yeah, lack of
lack of interest.
And the longer they get that lower volume, people start to say, why am I holding this? Why don't I sell it now and come back in a year?
Yeah, the year-to-date average volume for the Midas Letter Large Cap Index is 60.93 million. And the volume today so far is at 30.4 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like half, right?
Half the volume.
Yeah. No, and there's been damage done. I mean, I had a guy call me. I'm not going to mention any names, but he was watching your show, our show, and he said, "What's your view of Afria?" And because he's long, obviously, right? Like, and when you're long and you're tread water, like, is there what's coming? Well, I look at the charts. Charts tell me not much is coming unless something happens again. And we saw something happen with Kronos, and yet Kronos is back to just about where it was when they halted it.
Yeah. Afria closed the day down at 732.
Yeah.
That's down 15 cents or 2% on the day.
But life goes on.
Yeah, but Afria's seen some of its best volume in the last 10 days. 40 million shares traded on, what day was that last week? December the 6th.
Yeah,
that was the day the report came out.
It had several days of monster volume, right? So is that smart money going in or smart money going out?
Well, it's definitely money moving. Money.
Why don't they just print about a gazillion dollars and give everybody like a couple million? Why don't they just do that?
Because then they'd have to admit that the value of money and the distribution of wealth is arbitrary.
It's all bullshit.
And it's basically what you can steal or get away with, that's what you got.
Yeah.
So they don't do that because we have to have this illusion of the rule of law, which is how the people in power keep the people who are not in power out of power, through that illusion.
And it is ruled by a very small group of people, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So we're going to have Charting Man Dan is going to be with us here tomorrow.
Good. Is he going to be live or is he going to be interviewed?
He's going to be, we'll pre-record him just around lunchtime. We're going to have Clint Sharples from Heritage Cannabis here. I wonder how that stock's going. Pull up that chart.
What's
CANN on the CSE.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. So why don't I?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay, here we go. CANN on the CNX?
Yeah.
CNX. And voila. Well, there you go. I can see some patterns here. That's a 6-month chart. There we go. So clearly, over the last 6 months, we tried to get through there, a little bit lower there, about the same. We had 5 attempts to get higher at around, what's that number? 34 cents, right?
Yeah.
35 cents. And here we are breaking this low. And then we sort of established here, and now we're going this way. But these trend lines are pointing south, right? Like that's a south. That's going this way. That's going this way. This is all, you want to, which way. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. The trend is your friend.
Yeah.
So right now, do I want to rush out and start, allocating huge amounts of money? I want to see a climactic sell-off, something that's going to make me go, whoa. I remember when GE bought them back in 2000 and, I think it was about 2003 in this market. Or maybe it was 8. Maybe it was after the aftermath. I can't remember which one, but I'll tell you, boy, people were standing around looking, and everybody was looking at each other. You could see the whites in their eyes.
Yeah.
Because, Bear Stearns is gone, and people are like, oh, what the fuck? I mean, Jesus. Like, what? And it's astounding to me how history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes.
Yeah.
And they keep printing the money, no matter what. Like, what do they say? There's now 3 times as much money out there, but nobody has enough.
There we go.
3 times as much.
That's our show for today. Come back tomorrow and we'll keep it going. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like,